Welcome to The Claw. I'm Eric Holtzclaw, Chief Strategist at Liger. The Claw is the marketing podcast for C-suite executives. And in our world, we focus a lot on B2B marketing. And I am so excited because Camela Thompson with Calibermind is with me today. And she focuses also in the B2B space. So we're going to have a great conversation.
So exciting. Thank you so much for having me, Eric.
That does make us a little bit of geeks because we're excited about talking about B2B marketing. That's the...
Yeah.
I tell people that's the unsexy marketing, but I think it's a fun thing to work on.
Yeah, and I think I see a lot of brands bringing more personality and fun into it, which is so needed. So it doesn't need to be boring.
Our mission statement is saving the world from boring, broken marketing. And
I thank you for that.
Yeah, B2B is either typically boring or broken. And when we talk with you today, I think we're going to focus a little bit more on the broken side. So some things that B2B companies do that they could do better to understand really what's working. So let's talk a little bit about what your company does. And I'm always curious because no one ever makes it to B2B marketing in a direct path. It's not like you woke up in high school and said, I want to be a B2B marketer.
Yeah, and I have a weird one.
I love it. This is going to be amazing. Yeah, so tell me a little bit about Calibermind, and then how did you end up in the B2B marketing space?
Sure. So Calibermind is, we position ourselves as an attribution platform, but what we really are is a customer data platform for B2B.
Okay.
So I think a lot of B2C marketers are familiar with the concept, but what that is we create this golden account and contact record across all of your systems and then create a timeline of interactions with your brand so we can do analysis.
Nice. Very nice. And very needed because in the B2B space, it's not like B2C. Like I can't offer you some kind of like discount or, run an Instagram ad and see how you convert it. It's going to happen over time. It's a very dangerous decision typically when I'm deciding to work in a B2B space.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So how did you get into this work?
So I was in operations spanning marketing, sales, and customer success for 15 years in the B2B tech startup space and noticed a real gap in messaging. And as a technical buyer, I felt like it wasn't resonating with how I purchase, how I think of what I care about. So began copywriting, and here I am.
Oh, wow. Okay. But before that, I like to go back to the, what did you want to be when you grew up? How did you end up in this side of the world?
Well, I wanted to be a veterinarian, but I hated chemistry. So we had to do a bit of a pivot.
Okay. So wanted to be a veterinarian, and then you ended up going to school for marketing, or did you go to school for something else? Or
it's interesting. So I have a very left and right brain. Both of those are very present. So I was looking at the arts, and then my grandmother, who's an artist, was like, don't do that, you'll starve. So started looking more at, I loved economics, I loved mathematics, I loved statistics. So ended up going into business, and then it just really clicked with operations because I love process systems and the combination of people and finding efficiency and how we can better communicate is really what it's all about.
Yeah. And today for marketing, it's a combination of who is the person you're targeting and what's the tech you're using. So how do you put those things together and really make that work? So it sounds like you were solving this problem for yourself. So when you were building this product, it was like, this is something I wish I had. Is that a proper way to think about it?
Well, I can't take credit. I'm not the founder.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay.
I was really excited about it, though, because I had tried to solve this in a lot of different ways, some successful, some not, and saw a lot of the gaps. And this product really nicely solved a lot of those gaps. So,
sure. And did you use it as a customer before you came to work for him, or did you?
No, I was a prospect, but I had used Full Circle, Visible, the big ones out there, and was just really frustrated with how they were being implemented versus how the executive team actually wanted to use them, which is one of the big reasons people love to hate on attribution.
Yeah. Okay. So talk to me about that. So you've been on the front lines. You've seen things that haven't worked. What gets in the way? What is the problem?
Oh, I love this question. A lot of people are out there using attribution without even knowing it. So opportunity source, that's an attribution model. Lead source, still attribution. But what I see people getting really frustrated with is their multi-touch attribution. And I think vendors really created issues by overselling it as a silver bullet of precision. There are a lot of things we can't measure, and we need to be really honest about that. But the biggest hurdle I see is that it was meant to be a campaign optimization tool, and businesses are using it as a way to prove how much portion one department versus the other brought to the table in terms of pipeline and bookings.
Yeah. Yeah.
And when you don't instrument it correctly and you're not including the other departments that are influential in a sale, if they don't feel represented, you're going to get a lot of friction getting buy-in in your model. So I see a lot of people trying to solve this with, really advanced math and all of these different variables that they're trying to tug on, when really the issue is they're not including the touch points that the other departments work so hard to create.
The contribution they made to the ultimate sale.
Exactly. So if you go to an executive team, no matter what funky weighting you're using, if you put a chart up on the board and all of the tactics displayed are marketing, your sales leader, your channel partners, all of those people are going to just blow up your model. And I think a lot of people have been burned by that.
Okay. So you think you have something that you're going to show to everybody, and maybe they don't feel like they put their fingerprints on it and or didn't have something to contribute to it, and now it's just a worthless, like they can just poke holes in it. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's simple psychology. It's people want to feel represented, and they work really hard on closing business, and if you don't show them they're not going to buy in.
So give me a concrete example of something that might not be properly represented in this kind of model. Like when you're walking in and looking at a company, like this is definitely a gap that they almost always miss.
Right. So not including meaningful sales touches. And I don't mean all the emails they're blasting out and that sort of thing, but successful calls, meetings, meaningful interactions. And you also need to leave the bar high for marketing as well. If you're showing all of your website interactions, emails, opens, and clicks, you're bloating. I think a lot of people do this because they think marketing will look good because we're doing all these things and we want to show the full span of what we're doing. But what we're doing is we're bloating our impact and minimizing what other teams are doing. And we're also diluting our ROI on the meaningful touches that we spend a lot of money on.
Okay. So you're treating every touch the same, which is not appropriate, right?
Right.
So some touches are more important, like that face-to-face meeting that you got on the plane and you flew into the middle of the snow, whatever that happens to be. Like that is maybe more meaningful than I downloaded a white paper, right?
Well, yeah, right. And I'm not saying that we change the weight of these things. I'm saying that we raise the bar for what we include and don't include and get everyone cross-functionally to agree that, yes, these are the meaningful interactions that represent what my team does.
Yeah, and so I'm a recovering technologist and ran a research company for a period of time. So then technology and research together. And so thinking about that, what I love about marketing is I almost have this kumbaya feel for what marketing is, because it's the great unifier, right? Like it's the cradle to grave. It's responsible for when the person first hears about the brand to the point that they are no longer a customer, and touches every single part of that. So if marketing has that charter, they should want to include other kind of touch points and things that are happening, because they should have emphasized it. And like they should have had like either the brand they're using, the word, like something should have been part of it. So it feels just appropriate to be thinking about it across the entire company in that way.
Yeah. And I think a lot of marketers are a bit resentful of being forced to prove dollar for dollar what they're bringing to the table, because it shows a lack of understanding in what the buyer journey and buyer committee and all of these things really look like.
Yeah.
But it's reality. So
yeah, and I mean that is the big difference between B2B and B2C. B2C was like bring people to the door, the salesperson will pick them up, and B2B it's we talk about branding, awareness, traffic, conversion, optimization, and maintenance. Like there's this whole path of things you have to do to get people around. So since you've been in the battle for a long time, what are some ways that you get companies around that corner, like getting them to think about it more holistically?
Oh, well, I don't think there's anything better than pulling up an example account and having a platform that's like a CDP that can show all of the touch points. And then you start to see light bulbs go off on the executive team and see them understanding, oh my gosh, they touched 8 different things within marketing before they even talked to a salesperson. And then they kept interacting with marketing along the way. If you can visually demonstrate that on a few of the large logos that your company is proud of, I think that goes a long way. Another thing that's helping is the way buyers want to buy has been changing. And I don't see a lot of companies adjusting to this yet. But marketing is going to become more and more influential, which means we also have to raise our game and get better about talking about our data in a way the rest of the business understands. So we need to be prepared to explain the shortcomings of our models and what we can and can't do and why it's an estimate. So I think we need to get better about educating up as well.
That's really smart. So I'm going to take us a commercial break and come back, and let's talk a little bit about that, because marketers know often that they need to educate the customer, but they also need to educate the internal team. So what are some ways that can work? And you talked a little bit about in the segment about estimation, like how do I know when I'm estimating versus when things might be reality? Like what do we look at in those categories? So I think that would be a very helpful part to this conversation. So I'll be back in just a second. You're listening to The Claw. I'm Eric Holtzclaw, Chief Strategist at Liger Partners. I'm joined today by Camela Thompson. She is with Calibermind.
The Claw podcast is brought to you by Liger Partners. Liger Partners is a premier marketing firm where we save the world from boring, broken marketing. We get underdogs recognition because you deserve it. For more information, go to ligerpartners.com and follow us on all social media platforms at Liger Partners.
And we're back. You're listening to The Claw. I'm Eric Holtzclaw, Chief Strategist at Liger. I'm joined today by Camela Thompson. She is with Calibermind, and we're talking about a thing that's very important to the C-suite marketing executive, specifically in their B2B space, and Liger lives almost exclusively in B2B. The only B2C we have is because the company we're working with is a B2B company that happens to have a B2C thing. And I think B2C marketers have it easier, but we can talk about that on a different conference because it's our different call. But talking in your last segment, you were talking about the ideas of attribution. You used the term CDP. Can you break that down for me a little bit? Like if I don't necessarily know what attribution means or what is a CDP, what are those kind of those terms?
Absolutely. So attribution is we're taking an opportunity and we're allocating dollars to different interactions with your brands. So some attribution models assign all of the quote unquote credit of that opportunity to one point in time. Okay. And that's what you see when you hear people talk about opportunity source, lead source, first touch. That's a great example. Now, with multi-touch attribution, we're looking at all of the interactions with your brand within a time frame. So we're looking at before the opportunity was opened, typically until it was closed. And then we're taking each of those touch points and assigning dollars to them. And the reason why we do that is a lot of executives are pushed very hard to prove marketing's value to the rest of the business. And the way the business thinks is in terms of pipeline and bookings. And most of us understand that a single point in time is a very poor representation of all of the things marketing does. So this is the best proxy we have yet to date on how to get there.
Okay, very nice. I like that multi-touch attribution and the idea that the first thing is the thing that actually drove that. No, I may not even remember the first thing at all.
Right.
Yeah. But that
and it's probably not the actual first thing you really did.
Yeah.
Like a lot of stuff we can't track. So this is really meant to be an estimate, a good faith estimate that the cross-functional teams can agree on. And that's where a lot of people get it wrong.
Okay. And so then CDP, what is that?
That's a customer data platform. So what that does is it connects to all of your core systems. So think of your CRM, your marketing automation platform, your advertising platforms. And all of those platforms have a different way of thinking about people and accounts. And what this platform does for you is it makes this master key for accounts and people and then organizes all of the interactions they've had with your brand along a timeline, which makes attribution reporting much more complete and trustworthy, and funnel reporting is possible, and then surge scoring and seeing which accounts are interacting with your brand, whether you're looking at intent or first-party signals.
So I love that. It's great. Sounds like, any marketer would want that kind of solution to kind of look at the overall timelines. What are some of the challenges that people run into implementing that type of a platform?
So I think when they try to do it in-house, they really underestimate how much work goes into not only setting it up, but change management.
Okay.
Marketers have to be in different places very quickly, and that is a lot of tool acquisitions. And every time you get a new tool, you have to map the data and incorporate it into your model, and it can be very time-consuming. The other major issue we're seeing in the market, and this is only going to get worse, is that platforms like Calibermind have to adhere to GDPR and privacy first. So we're only going to be as good as, one, your data sources, and two, your audience's willingness to give up their information. Yeah. So there really has to be a value exchange there that's compelling in order for us to get that information.
Now, that's really smart. I was talking with somebody just even today about solving something as a technology problem. Technologists like to check things off a box. Hey, we're done. We did that, right? And marketing is always changing. It's always fluid. And so that technology need, that technology requirement, though it was something a week ago, is now something different today. And so how you have that flexibility to take advantage of that, because marketing uses technology because that's the tool, not because it's about the technology, right?
Right. You still need the people. You need smart people to go in and also interpret what your tools are telling you. So if you get this really fancy schmancy attribution tool and you're not sure what to do with the information you're getting, it's time to fill that gap.
You talked about in the first segment a little bit about marketing groups doing things that maybe they shouldn't be doing or mistakes that they're making. So unpack that for me a little bit more. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, and I'll boil it down to two things, one of which is super simple to solve and the other not so much. So the first thing that's really easy to solve is I see a lot of B2B marketers not marketing internally. And what I mean by that is this misalignment between sales and marketing. Some of it can be solved by over-communicating, meeting with your team on a regular basis, but then also circling back and showing how you're incorporating sales feedback. Yeah. And publicizing wins. So if you got a really big deal because of this trade show and the salesperson's really excited about it, use that opportunity to start socializing it within the company. I always tell people I'm a data person, but I understand that stories are what change minds, not data. So you have to get that emotional connection going, and that's what marketers are meant to do. I think we just really forget to shine that spotlight internally as well.
So do a customer or do a salesperson story. They're like, I was able to put a down payment on my house because that customer signed.
Oh, heartstrings. Yes. I hit my number. My family was fed. Everybody was happy. I don't mean to sound glib, but that's really what they're struggling with is they need an income, they need success, and you're helping them get there. So celebrate it.
Yeah, absolutely. And as you think about the future, let's talk a little bit about that. So we got some new things going on, right? There's artificial intelligence. There's all kinds of tools coming on. How do you see that impacting the marketer's job? Like, what does that look like?
So before we go there, I would love to talk about the second thing that's a little bit shorter to fix.
Yes.
So that second thing is educating up about data.
Okay.
So getting really data literate and understanding the shortcomings of what you're doing, why it usually has to be an estimate as opposed to a one-for-one penny to penny. We're dealing with a lot of, in B2B tech, especially people with financial backgrounds or with programming backgrounds that are used to line-by-line code audits or balancing sheets down to the penny. So it's very important to help educate how subjective our world is. And while we're not as forced to deal with ambiguity as we were back in the agency days where we only had, television, radio, the things that are just so hard to track for especially B2B, we're still not ever going to get to the place where we can read minds and then divide up how the opportunity actually came in. We have to estimate. So really kind of buckling down and learning how to speak the same lingua franca as the rest of the business group. They're talking about bookings, pipeline. That's where we need to focus to.
Yeah, and I can see that being the more I've learned about myself, the more I'm probably a marketer, right? Because, math, I do it when it has to do with money. But thinking about getting into that and either having someone strong on your team who understands it, because it may just not be your thing. I mean, you talked about chemistry, like some people, the math, once you get to a certain point, but speaking that language, so a good person who kind of translates across like what this looks like and how it works.
Right. And I think part of this, though, is a lot of creatives are told that they're bad at math and they can't pick it up. And there's this fear where we don't even want to try because we don't want to look silly or admit what we don't know. We need to admit what we don't know and realize that reading charts is not math. It is pattern matching. And it's something we started at a really young age. It's how we recognized our parents' faces or which kind of peanut butter we want to get. So it's really important to kind of step back and shake off the heebie-jeebies when you look at data and start asking more questions, particularly of your operations person, like, are you seeing any patterns? How did you spot that? And start looking at the same metrics every quarter, because people don't want to hear about initiatives. They want to hear about how initiatives impacted your top line metrics.
Got it. Very nice. Okay, so now future conversations. So what are the impacts you see and some of the new tech that's coming on, artificial intelligence, like what do marketers need to be worried about next?
I don't think they really need to be worried. Whenever I see machine learning or AI, there still needs to be a human element in there that is really reading what's coming next. So let's take ChatGPT. It's essentially taking the content that has already happened over the last year and regurgitating it. And as a B2B marketer, if I want to attract people, especially the young company, I need to think of the cutting edge, maybe contrarian, maybe a little bit edgy content that people actually want to consume. Yeah. So I use ChatGPT, but it's like, take this piece of content, give me ideas for social ads, different things. I'm still going to have to edit it, but it saves me a ton of time. I think we need to look at it as a way to augment what we're already doing and not as a replacement for the people.
Agreed. Curation, not creation. So how am I curating and I have to be, and making it not boring and not broken. So kind of leaning into that. Yeah. Well, thank you so much for joining me today. How do people find out all the things about you and your company?
Well, they can go to Calibermind.com and they can find me on LinkedIn, and it's just /Camela-Thompson, and that's hard to spell. So start with Calibermind and you'll find me there because I'm all over their page.
I love it. Well, thank you so much for joining me on The Claw today.
Thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it.
So you've been listening to The Claw. I've been talking with Camela Thompson. She's with Calibermind. If you are a B2B marketer and you want to figure out how to fix that attribution that your CEO or CRO or CFO or anyone is asking you about, then Calibermind sounds like a good company for you to reach out and talk to. Until next time, thank you for tuning in.